If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to Downfall Network for more cool content. What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. And it's kind of shocking, like this late in the year we had some more album reviews, but...
Yeah, normally that's not a thing.
Yeah, December releases really aren't a huge thing, but we found one that we definitely wanted to go over because it's just awesomely weird and, I don't know, it's a fun band. It's the band Undergang with their new album, Aldrig, Livet. I don't know how to say.
Yeah, we're gonna really screw this up pretty bad because all these songs are in
Swedish,
Finnish.
Swedish.
They're from Denmark.
They're from Denmark, but I think when I looked up Google Translate, it took me to Swedish, and I assume it's Swedish, even though all the members are from Denmark.
Yep.
I don't know, but.
And I tried to look up these song titles in Google Translate, and Google Translate pretty much just told me to go fuck myself.
Yeah, like you're making this shit up. Come on. Yeah, we're going to struggle there, but this is a pretty interesting album. Now, this band formed in 2008 in Copenhagen, Denmark, and this is their fifth album. I actually own two of their albums. I believe it's the two previous to this, so I'm kind of used to their style of gritty, dirty-sounding death metal. This band actually features some former members and current members of Saarcloth and Frontalith. Now, we're definitely familiar with Frontalith.
Yes.
They had an amazing release a couple of years ago, and this pretty much is kind of somewhere in between Swedish death metal and Finnish death metal, and it is definitely its own unique thing, and you pretty much get that right away from the opening track, Pre Fluidum. That's probably not even close.
Yeah, Pre Fluidum.
Yeah, that. What he said, what I said. That. Right away, does not waste any time, and you are introduced to one of the sludgiest guitar tones I think I've heard in death metal this year, and I've heard a lot of death metal.
Except you get those creepy dying yells and growls over the first part of it.
And like weird like dive bombs. There's lots of cool like ascending and descending riffs, and it definitely adds a lot to like the atmosphere. Like when the lead melodies come in, most of the time they're just sort of like a lead melody. Occasionally you get a solo, but it's almost sort of like a, you know, like
it's really weird.
A dying whale. That's pretty much one of the things I thought of. And the bass tone is so ungodly low and sludgy, it pretty much sounds like a muffled fart on a old leather couch. Now, the first two tracks are kind of interesting in the sense that they're both like a minute and a half long. They're almost kind of like a dual intro. The opening track, I'm not saying that word again, just kind of leads in with a nice kind of groovy riff. And then right into the next track, Spontan Bacterial. Pretty sure that's what they meant there, but it's spelled weird. Selvantec. I don't know. My handwriting's not great, and that
you know what? It's funny.
You
told me that there was more to it, and I didn't even write it down.
It's okay.
I probably had a brain fart trying to write it down and stopped.
But this one kind of picks up the pace, more blast beats, and this is where you're introduced to the vocals. Really, like you hear like gurgles and kind of spits and groans in the opening track, but now you start hearing words, or at least what I think are words.
But they're so far back in the mix, but I like that. It just sounds like demons.
I don't know if they're actually even far back in the mix, or they're just so low they sound like
right,
they are.
Maybe they're not, maybe the mics aren't catching the...
I mean,
I don't know.
It could be, because they trade off vocals. There are two vocalists on here. One does the backing vocals versus the main frontman who has the lowest, almost groan, gurgle. But they bounce back and forth occasionally on this, but his vocals are unbelievably low.
I'm pretty sure he's hitting the brown note. I'm
Definitely.
pretty sure had this been louder, I would have shit my pants.
Like, they had to record this with him on his own. No one else could hear his vocals because everyone would just be shitting their pants.
Imagine they filled the studio full of people, and then they were like, all right, go for it. And then they shot through bullhorns out into the parking lot. Like, the whole town shit themselves.
They could do it. This whole thing feels kind of like, I don't know, like a bit of a tribute to, like, early Carcass, namely Symphonies of Cygnus. Like, it has like that Bill Steer low vocal, albeit I think even lower on here. And the riffs are sludgy, but they're catchy. There's lots of cool hooks.
Dude, there's a lot of cool hooks in this. A lot more than I thought there would be, because typically with things like this, you don't get a lot of that. You just get blast beats and just... But yeah, this had a lot going on. A lot of interesting dynamics. Like in the song Menace Eater. I tried, dude.
That's how Swedish people try to say Minnesota.
I tried, yeah.
Or like Mississippi or Mosquito. I don't know.
Originally, this song gave me kind of a Gatecreeper vibe, but the vocals are lower because these are just lower than everything.
It has like the Gatecreeper groove,
yep.
But it's kind of missing like the hardcore-ish spots, because when they break into like the D beat, it's kind of more punk.
Yeah. But this is where the melody and the hooks start happening in the album. The riff work is actually pretty solid, but it's so murky, you gotta pay attention. It's
kind of similar to like a buzzsaw tone, but like it's so down-tuned that it's just this floppy bullfrog grumble. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just a dirty sounding tone, but it really works. And when you start hearing like some really clear, distinct melodies, you really find some cool hooks in
floppy butt cheeks farting on a leather sofa.
You just wanted to say butt cheeks.
I did.
One of their strong suits in here is Death Doom breaks. There are some absolutely killer ones, like in Torrit League. Sure. That one has an absolutely amazing Death Doom break with some really creepy, dissonant melodies on top of it. And how they alternate back and forth between like these punky D beats and then shift to Death Doom breaks. The transitions are odd, but they work.
Yes.
And I think it just kind of works because this is an odd band. Like, there are weird off-time like rhythms and such, kind of non-conventional death metal riffs. And again, like with the lead stuff, it's generally these weird dissonant squawks and like odd little just not pockets of melody, but it's all like a disturbing melody. It's all like just grossly over the top in every death metal sense there is.
Like in Unfrivolig Donation af Vital Organaire. I tried.
C+ forever.
It's about as high up the neck as you're gonna get for this band, because
I mean, the melody that opens up is really kind of pretty. Like, probably like one of the cleanest moments on this entire album.
What I'm saying.
And this is where you get like the alternating vocals, like they really shine here, or kind of have a shimmering, gooey glinter. I don't know. There's not a good comparison here. But this is just kind of like a fun dynamic, because you get to hear these two ultra low register vocals got to go back and forth. It's like a conversation between two ogres about, well, how are you going to cook this human? I don't know. And to put salt on it, maybe garlic. I don't know what they're talking about, because A, it's in Swedish, and B, it's very, very low gurgles. But this has one of the catchiest breakdowns on the entire album. A flat-out, just meat-hammered to the skull-size riff, and really cool, like, lead melodies on it that, you know, again, catchy for death metal, not really for anything else if you don't like death metal. But again, like, this is kind of an interesting one, especially when I compared it to, like, you know, the previous stuff I'd listened to. Like, it was all very meat potatoes, except meat potatoes covered in slime and filth.
Yeah, like the last 30 seconds of this song are a great jam.
Hooks, like legit hooks. Yep. And that was kind of a thing about their past releases, is they were heavy, but they didn't have a lot of hooks. This is kind of a little bit of a change for them, where there are distinct melodies on here.
The end of this song reminded me of Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah, there's nods to old school death metal, death doom, punk, and how they kind of interwork that all is really, really insane. A lot of this has that sort of Demilich-like feel, but again, sort of mix that with like Dismember and Entombed. And I don't know, it just kind of works, because it really kind of feels like a bridge between two very different styles, with Finnish death metal and Swedish death metal. And there's really interesting like rhythmic things that these guys do in terms of like their very meat potatoes approach, but there's like these little subtle nods. Like in Sigilgi Nedelser Delva Third, Emmet Feely. That was the song title. I butchered it. Anyway, this opens up with a really cool low buzzsaw again. The singer takes a nice puke. And then you kind of greet it to these interesting shifts in terms of like up-tempo rhythms. Like you get, kind of like a stomping blast, and then there's like a thrashy blast beat with this kind of cool little hi-hat thing where it keeps the groove.
Oh yeah, with that weird like it's like a solid D beat between the kick and the snare, but the hi-hat groove is accented in like the 1 and the 3.
Yeah.
It's weird.
So instead of doing like this, you're just kind of like, all right, I'm still in that groovy pocket that it's just all over this album. So I kind of like that. There's also like bits with like a bit of a marching snare. There's these weird little off-time blasts with like cool accents. And again, like, for a meat and potatoes, again, drenched in slime and filth sort of approach, it's really cool to hear these little subtle, maybe not super technical nods, but interesting nods. Something to sort of spice up the song and make it, more than just a straight groove-laden death metal song.
Yeah. I do think some of these songs could stand to be a little bit longer, though. For the most part, the tracks range anywhere between, about 2.5 minutes to about 4 minutes. It'd be interesting to see what they could do to pack in a little bit more material. I say things like that, but then I get into the song Usama League, Umgang Med Lig. I'm sorry. It sounds like they're having fun in this song, and I speak most notably of that vocal bit where he goes, ugh, but then it echoes. And,
like there's a puke that's just echoing through space.
Yep. And then they have this little jam, and then like a boa constrictor is gargling salt water in the background.
It's so odd sounding, and then this is the same song with the
Yeah, dude, right before they go into this little jam session, the vocalist just goes,
I'm glad he was okay, because I was originally sure someone was choking in that vocal booth, and they were like, well, should we give him the Heimlich? It's like, no, because he's nailing it right now. This is really good.
Like maybe he smacked his funny bone, but like, we're good.
But it's interesting because that transition brings in a clean part. Well, it's kind of clean. It has like a clean guitar bit, but it's accented by a heavier chug that comes in and then back to the clean bit. And that sort of accent sort of leads into this next big, like, kind of groovy death metal chug-a-thon, which is like extra sludgy bolt thrower at that moment. And I kind of like that lead in. It was a clever little bit. But yeah, like, it's interesting, like, the two opening tracks, if I was going to knock it on it, are essentially just one track. I mean, there is a break between them, but it feels like just one track. Maybe that wasn't all necessary, because I think most of the inventiveness is on the longer tracks, or at least the more regular length
in the
tracks.
back half of the album. I mean, it's only 8 songs, so it's not like it's an incredibly lengthy album, and especially since the songs are predominantly shorter than not. Maybe it was their attempt at, like, let's write a couple grind songs. No, just kidding. We're gonna write...
It's death metal.
Sludgy.
But when you get down to the last track, Rot.Cod? Sure. This one actually has some really interesting bits. Again, you had like a cool creepy lead in, breaks into just an unbelievable, like, just groovy stomp, big chugs, D beat, and then all of a sudden this D beat just stops and goes right into a Death Doom section. And I admit the transition's weird. Like, some of the transitions are odd on here, but just because it's an odd band, I think that kind of works with them, but it's like, knee-jerk for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, in this case, it was pretty solid. Like, they were jamming on a D beat, and then just it just slows. Like, the tempo just immediately just drops out.
I think there was
it's executed well.
It is. And I like the Death Doom section that follows. I think it's one of the best moments on the album.
It's actually probably closer to Funeral Doom. It is slower than a dude with no legs and arms trying to climb a mountain.
I mean, he's probably just bouncing with his teeth. Actually, he shouldn't be on that mountain. That's not safe, man.
Who put him on there?
Someone did. But I like the syncopated breakdown on here, and this actually has, like, one of the most legit solos on here, because, in terms of, like, lead work, it's kind of just pockmarked and, again, like, kind of squealy and weird, but this one has, like, a kind of tasteful lead.
Kind of decent lead. Remind me of Morbid Angel.
Yeah, right away, like, they kind of break into, like, a tremolo and a blast beat, and it's like, yeah, this definitely sounds like Morbid Angel. But this is just a fun listen. Like, that was the main thing on this. This is just interesting, trying to process all the stuff they're doing to make this insanely heavy. And outside of having to look up a lot of Swedish words, this was a real treat to listen to. So overall, I'm going to give this 4 stars. It's heavy, it's sludgier than hell, it's kind of that self-aware kind of like goofy over the top, and I love it a lot for that. Some of the transitions are a little odd, and this mix is it's really good because they were able to separate all that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It is like just oppressively heavy, but in a fun way. That's the main thing on here. Like, it's just fun to listen to. There's just loads of big, heavy riffs. You're gonna bang your head. You're gonna be confused by Swedish words unless you're from Sweden or Denmark, apparently. But yeah, this is a fun jam. Definitely pick this one up. I'm ordering it right after this.
I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. I agree with what Nick says as far as it being a fun listen. It's definitely a fun listen, and you can definitely tell that the musicians are having fun, the band's having a good time. No one's obviously taking themselves too seriously, which again you'll see in the last 2 tracks. I do wish it was a little bit longer, and if not a little bit longer, I wish they'd given the lead work more time to shine, because while these songs may not call for things like, blazing fast leads or, anything crazy, they don't let that guy open up until the end, and when he does open up, it's really good, and I don't know, I'd like to see more of it, but it's not a bad album, but that's why it gets a half star less.
So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We will catch you later.